Hello and welcome back to the Mystic in Training podcast with me, Melissa Amos. It is so good to have you back. Now, we have spent the last few episodes diving deep into intuition and into purpose. And today there's something I really want to discuss because sometimes living this path isn't what we expected it to be. I know for me that when I first came into spirituality and started to discover about Reiki and the law of attraction and how the mind and the body and the soul all link together, I kind of figured that, well, choosing this path must mean that we are going to be living an easier life. And I think there is some truth to that. I think that there's a feeling that when we follow that path, when we're really on purpose, that when we follow the soul, that for sure, there is this energy that moves through us that makes things perhaps easier to cope. However, one thing that I didn't know about the soul way back then, when I thought it was going to be this more kind, more fluffy, more compassionate, more simple, more peaceful. That was definitely a word I associated with the soul, more peaceful life. What I didn't bank on was the fierceness that the soul has, this absolute power that sits inside the soul, that when you actually tune into it, you realize that your soul doesn't really care about comfort. When you declare, I am going to live a soul-led life, the soul switches on and goes, hey, let's go for the ride. And it begins to offer to you the karmic patterns. It begins to offer to you the challenges. It begins to offer to you all of those things that you kind of left in the bank of, maybe one day when I'm stronger, I will go ahead and pick this one up and move through that challenge. The soul goes, hey, we are going to resolve all of our karma. We are going to grow. We're going to learn our lessons. We are going to evolve. And if we know anything about evolution and growth and change, it's not easy. So today, dear listener, we are going to be diving into the fierceness of the soul, this power that sits within. And this one's for you if you have ever wondered if that feeling of discomfort is actually leading you towards or away from something. This one's for you if you've ever felt that dark night of the soul and wondered if there's ever a way out of it. And this one's also for you if you've ever started down this road of spiritual exploration and realized that it's not really as easy as you thought. So let's dive in. If anyone's really looked at the mystics, we should probably have been forewarned about this fierceness of the soul. And despite what a lot of modern literature tells us, perhaps it should have been more obvious from the start. Look at Khalil Gibran, who says the soul is oftentimes a battlefield upon which your reason and your judgment wage war against your passion and your appetite. Now, that tells you something. That tells you that that part of you that's making you feel uncomfortable, I think, isn't the soul and it isn't the human, but it's when these two things don't lead together. And I know for me, when I was happily, not so happily, selling cars, and I was putting aside all of the things that really wanted to come through, what I felt was this huge discomfort that actually led me to have some sometimes quite worrying thoughts. Like, what if my brakes fail on my way to work so I can get a week off and just read my books, which is really what I wanted to do and philosophize. When I'd be sitting in circles of friends and they'd be talking about the latest celebrities, and I'd just be like, oh my God, can't we talk about something more interesting? And kind of wanting to get out and run. These are just really small examples, but that discomfort that we feel, that anger, that frustration, that there must be more, that feeling that we really want to scream and shout, is actually, I believe, our soul going, you need to feel less comfortable, Missy. Otherwise, you're going to carry on going down this road. And that's not what we are here for. That's not why we are incarnated in this life. And so what I see happen time and time again, I've seen it with me, I see it with so many of my clients, that we go down this path and we do what I call our conditioned self. We do what the conditioned self has been leading us towards. What our conditioned self, which forms a lot of what society has told us is right, which forms what a lot of what our parents maybe considered was the right thing to do, our culture, even the consumer aspect of ourselves. None of us are immune to those outside influences. And we start to go down this path that in a way forms part of our golden thread, because I don't think there's anything that is coincidence, but we have this inner guidance system that is our soul, that when we begin to ignore it, when we move more into logic, and when we move more into judgment, and when we move more into, well, this is what is expected of me, so this is what I'm going to do, the soul sits there and goes, hey, how long are we playing this game? And I think for a while it might come in some quiet whispers. It might come in this feeling of longing or belonging. It may come in those desires to, I really want to study this or look into this or go and experience this. And we might see them come up in the books that we read, or the programs that we choose to watch, or the conversations that we choose to have, or the holidays that we choose to go on, or even, if we're lucky, the work that we choose that we're to do. But it's when we fall out of that alignment, the soul really has to speak up. The soul really has to get your attention. And if we're not listening to the joys, if we're not listening to those tugs of, this is really what I want to go, I wonder if I pull on this thread where it's going to lead me to. But we resist it and we go, no, I'm in the right job, or I'm in the right relationship, or this is the place that I'm meant to be, or this is all that's out there. Then the soul's going to do what it can to prove you wrong, to get you back on track, to pull you back on the path that you agreed to go on. And yes, we have free will, but maybe we realize that this will isn't as free. Now, our will is strong, and depending on quite how strong our connection is or not, our free will can be, or our will can be, pretty strong. If our conditioning is set with that, and we are so into what our brain is telling us or what society is telling us, we can override a lot. So you could imagine if you were this little soul that was sitting within you, or looking down on you, or wherever you perceive that, what does it need to do to get your attention? If you're not listening to the joys and the tugs, well, maybe you're going to listen to the pain. Maybe you're going to listen to the part of you that is feeling really uncomfortable. Like Michael Meade from The Genius Myth, fellow podcaster, says, what calls us is not comfort, but the deep and fierce knowing of the soul. Deep and fierce knowing of the soul, not our comfort. And if we are, as I was speaking about in the last episodes, if we are attuned to comfort, well, then there's going to be a disparity there. And this is where this war might come and break out. And that is not what we want. And I do believe that those of us who have had those dark nights of the soul, those feelings like this is never going to end, this thing of coming into rock bottom, this is our soul going, no longer can we do this. This is your chance. This is your invitation. And maybe these things aren't sent to us so that we can heal them, or we can numb them, or we can put them away, but they're sent to us as invitations to relook at our priorities, to relook at what's possible for us, to relook at whose life are we living here? Because that's what your soul wants for you. What your soul wants for you is growth and learning and evolution. What your soul wants for you is for you to come down and live this life and to place back within, if you like, the karmic field, back within your Akashic records, back within your soul's path. Well, this is who I am, and this is what I've learned, and this is what I've grown to. These are the challenges that I've overcome. These are the strengths that I have cultivated. These are the talents that I've mastered. This is the impact that I've made. And we're not really going to do that if we're walking along a path that isn't ours, if we're walking along a path that was there to please everybody else and puts you in the back. What your soul wants is put yourself front and center. Put yourself front and center and ask yourself, what is it that I want? What is it that I really, really want? And then the trick comes in what brings you the answer. If the answer comes from your consumer-driven self, if you find that the answer is, well, I would like the new car, and I would like the job title, and I would like this thing that I saw advertised to me, or what my friends have, or to keep up with the Joneses, then it's fine. Like, you can have those things. I have got nothing against wanting lovely things. I think this is part of the human experience, but the soul doesn't really care for that. That answer's coming from that consumer self. If the answer starts to become, well, this is what was expected of me. And like when I was selling cars and I thought, well, what I really want is to move up within this company, because that was the path that I could see laid before me. That was what was expected of me. That's what would give me status. That's what would give me what I thought was respect. That's what I thought would make my life easier. But in hindsight, that definitely would not have made my life easier. All of my friends that were promoted into those spaces ended up definitely having a harder life coming into the managerial way. But my point, this is the path that was laid before us. And then this comes more from this conditioned self, or this cultured self. The trick comes with, how do we tune into our soul? How do we tune into that truth? Because for many of us, it is so buried down. It's so beneath everything that we find it really hard to tune in. And sometimes we'll have this feeling, and then we'll immediately, logic self, conditioned self, will quite quickly dismiss it because it doesn't seem to fit in with the path. It seems ludicrous. Have you ever had a ludicrous thought and you are like, no way, that can't be me? Just like when I was selling cars, if you'd have told me that I'd be here where I am now at the end result, it would have been too much. So much of me would have rejected the concept, but the clues were there. Like when I was a teenager and thought about becoming a DJ, and here I am with my own podcast. Like when I was looking at my degree options and I looked at philosophy and I was this close. I enrolled in philosophy and then changed it in the end to business studies because I figured it would be more useful. But my soul was like, philosophy. Imagine just spending all of your days in the room just talking about things with no answers. Hello, this is me. So we begin to look at, what is it that we truly want? And then this is where it gets ironic, because I think when we're not listening to the soul, I think when we are more into our human self, into our mind, into our intellect, the soul can start to be really loud when we're ignoring it. It can be really annoying, I think, was the Freudian slip that was just coming out through there. But then when we actually tune in, that soul becomes really elusive. It did with me anyway. It's like, I'm going to make it work a little bit harder. Or, and I'm definitely going to speak about this, we're waiting for this big booming voice to come in. And maybe your soul doesn't speak to you that way. Maybe your soul speaks to you in subtle shifts. Maybe your soul speaks to you in light, in sensation, in color, in signs from the outside world. Your soul doesn't always talk to you like we think that we're going to. So then we start to cultivate a practice. Then we start to find our tools of, how do I draw this voice out of me? Then we begin to understand that this is a part of me. And how do I make it stronger? How do I turn it up? How do I stop it only being really loud when it's a battle? And how do I actually make it something that is a companion, something that I bring along for the ride, so that it can become once again this thread that pulls us, this thread that just gently, that's what we're wanting, that we don't want this fierceness to keep coming out and coming through and it to be the only way that it speaks to us. And knowing that when it does, because I still had it, I even had it recently, that my soul was really giving me a really strong question, you know, after I'd come back from Scotland and I'd had this real shift in my vibration, in my energy, and in my priorities. Yet so much of me, my conditioned self, was like, no, let's stay here and this feels good and let's just go back into doing what we were always doing because it was always fun and there was nothing. And it was trying to talk it out of me. But then what happened is I felt this really strong feeling. And yes, I started by resisting it. And I started by like, well, how do I make this go away? Because this isn't very nice. But how ultimately I moved through it, and literally in a couple of days moved through it, at least the most dramatic aspect of it, was coming back into love and recognizing that this fierceness that the soul was providing me was actually love in action. And actually what it was doing was inviting me to strip away the things that didn't feel good anymore, that it wasn't punishing me. It was purifying my human experience so that my soul could step forward in another way. You can look at it as almost as percentage of how much percentage am I human led and how much percentage am I soul led. And it was the next aspect that wanted to come alive. And when that happens, something has to fall away. It has to. And I think that when I came into that moment of lucidity, like, well, this isn't a battle, although it feels like one. This is my soul saying to me, hey, there's something here that you need to look at. And my response was, okay, I love you. And then my inner child threw a hissy fit and was telling me all of the reasons why it wouldn't work. And the answer to that was, okay, I love you. And letting my inner child be felt by the soul, really, who is the wise one, the wise parent, rather than me leading from decisions and leading from that feeling of what that inner child needed, offering that from the soul, offering that and going, hey, I hear you, I see or feel that lesson that needs to be moved through, and we're not going to fight it, not anymore. Come along with me, let's join me, let me hear what you need. And then this integration begins to happen. We're honoring the purpose of the soul. We become devoted to our growth. We become devoted to, okay, well, I wonder where this is leading us to. And we begin to realize that whatever I do, my soul isn't going to be satisfied with staying small or settling for less. My soul's going to be like, hey, you want this? Let's do this, without care for my comfort. I mean, don't get me wrong, your soul cares for you desperately and are human. And also, I'm not saying that our human isn't important. It is. Like, we need this human being in order to be. Like, we can't do this without the human. We come into Earth School, we come and incarnate so that we can become who it is that we're becoming, right? We can't do that on our own. So it's bringing it all together. And this is what I want to leave you with, is understanding ultimately that our soul does have this fierce quality, and that fierce quality is not punishing you. That fierce quality is love being expressed, going, I know that there's more for you. So let's go do this thing. I got ya. And the more we lean into that, well, the more possibilities, peace, desire, experience, love, compassion, empathy, growth, all of these things that we've been looking for, the more we land into them. And so, dear listener, I ask you between now and the next episode to just notice when you feel that discomfort and just bring that small contemplation of, hey, soul, I hear you. I love you. What would you have me do? Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to hearing your contemplations. As always, if you need a little more courage, the Courage Rewired free gift is available for you. I will pop it in the show notes. You can just listen to and help to rewire where and what it is that you listen to. It's been a pleasure having you here, and I look forward to speaking with you again on the next episode of the Mystic in Training podcast with me, Melissa Amos. Lots of love.